Happy New Year's to all of our Red Zone to EndZone followers out there. We hope you had a great one, and this season has been great, but the new year started off even better with two really great matchups. UCF defeating Auburn and Georgia defeating Oklahoma. Griffin, what was your favorite game from this weekend?
For me, it had to be the Rose Bowl. Somehow they were able to outscore last year's Rose Bowl, even with that amazing Georgia defense. I had an amazing time watching the game. I was in Georgia for it, surrounded by Georgia Bulldogs fans. It was a great time.
That was definitely my favorite game as well. We'll be talking about how Georgia played in that game, as well as their competitor Alabama, as they duke it out for the title. The Rose Bowl was certainly a game for the history books. A number of records were broken, including the first overtime in Rose Bowl history, as well as playoff history. And the total combined points was greater than we've ever seen in a Rose Bowl. But Georgia had great defense. Now, it wasn't a good defensive performance in the first half. They gave up 31 total points, which was almost more than they gave up all season. The highest number of points they gave up in any game was to Auburn, and that was 40 points. But this is just in the first half alone, 31 points. But they came back out striking in the second half. They limited the Oklahoma Sooner offense to 29 offensive yards, 0 points in the third quarter, only about 180 total yards in the second half. And they came out and won in double overtime. You also had these special teams, which was remarkable. Aside from the 30-yard punt, they limited CeeDee Lamb and the Oklahoma Sooners from getting good field positioning off punt and kickoff returns, but they also had the blocked field goal at the end, which really helped them seal the deal in Pasadena, California. And then lastly, Jake Fromm's awareness as quarterback has been incredible. Right here, he sees the Oklahoma defense is stacked to his left side. He pulls Michelle aside and directs him up the right through the gap, and there you go, you have a touchdown. It's off to the races for Michelle.
Alabama, on the other hand, just completely demolished Clemson, not even allowing a single touchdown the entire game. They didn't really have very many problems. Now that you finally see what a healthy Alabama defense looks like, it's pretty impressive to watch. They were up against one of the toughest rushing attacks in the entire country, something that they're going to have to face again this coming Monday against Georgia. And they did an amazing job. They stopped them in every single facet of the offensive game. And while Alabama's offensive stats weren't exactly the most impressive, especially not compared to the two teams that were going head-to-head in the Rose Bowl, they did everything they needed to do to win the game, and they played what I like to call safe and smart. All year long, they've limited turnovers, and they've limited the number of overall penalties they've had. This game was no exception. They only had 2 penalties all game long for a total of 10 yards, and once again, they only had 1 turnover. And they're finally back on the bandwagon of what they did last year, which was have the defense score touchdowns for you. Your offense can't do everything for Alabama, so they let their defense do a lot of the work for them. They're definitely going to look to continue that trend and continue to improve, especially on the defensive side of the ball as they continue to get healthy.
Well, and Griffin, that performance in particular was good for Alabama, who had faced a lot of criticism after they were picked for the college football playoff, despite losing to Auburn.
Oh yeah, and I 100% agree with the criticism. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that Alabama was picked, but they proved they belonged, as they always do, and it looks like, as of now, it was a pretty good pick.
Yeah, Clemson definitely looked like the weak end of the stick, and they were ranked number 1 going into the playoffs. But Griffin, if you were in that position, what do you do here? Do you expand the college football playoffs? Because you had Ohio State and UCF, who probably both deserved a spot in this playoff as well.
Yeah, see, for me, I personally would expand it. I think that the bigger the playoff gets, to a certain point, obviously, I think 6 teams would be the perfect expansion. I think number 1 and number 2 should have a bye week, just like similar to the NFL platform, and then have 3 through 6 play each other in week 1, and then have it be a 3-week playoff instead of just a 2-week playoff. I think it'd really get more viewers involved. It'd make it more of a countrywide affair instead of this year. 3 of the 4 teams were in the Southeast specifically, and another one was in Oklahoma, which isn't exactly very far out west. You're leaving out the entire West Coast and the entire Midwest and the entire Northeast by having the playoff system the way it's currently set up. I think expanding it and being able to reach extra regions would really help both viewership and overall interest in college football continue to grow.
I agree with that, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well, so comment below what you think should be done. You can't really say either team has a lot of weaknesses here because they're the best two teams in the country right now. One thing Alabama has not been performing to their expectations is the passing offense. Jalen Hurts has been a mobile quarterback, and he is dangerous when he's mobile, but he hasn't gotten the passing attack to where he had it last year. And there's still room for development, and that definitely shows out there. You have two teams in this game in particular who are very similar. Both are going to try and run the ball as much as they can because that's where they excel, but both are also really good at stopping the run. So it's going to be a game in the trenches. At this point in the season, Griffin, it's going to be who has more heart and who really comes out and doesn't, get sidetracked by all these distractions. Georgia, they got sidetracked last week. They came out, they weren't firing like they should have. This week, you can't afford to do that in the national championship.
No, definitely not against Alabama. Alabama is one of those teams where they will make you pay, and Alabama won't make the same mistakes, especially on the defensive side of the ball that Oklahoma did. There were some times last week where Oklahoma's defense just looked like they may as well have not been on the field for a couple of those long runs that Georgia broke off. There is no point in having them out there if they're going to continuously miss assignments, miss gaps. It was pretty pitiful, especially on some of those longer runs. And as you said, Georgia doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, but they do have some that are fairly glaring, and the first half of Oklahoma is by far the worst one they've had all season. In that game, they allowed 242 yards on just 42 rushing attempts, which is absolutely insane, especially when you think about Oklahoma's offense. They're known for passing. They're known for Baker Mayfield and what he's able to create. They're not known for being that run-heavy offense that they were able to be against a Georgia defense that's supposed to be one of the best rush defenses in the entire country. And Georgia's offense, also similar to Alabama, has had some issues in the pass game. I know a lot of you guys don't agree with my opinion that Jake Fromm isn't an elite quarterback, but I still haven't been proven wrong yet. He's very consistent and he's very efficient, but he only had one completion of more than 20 yards all game long against a horrible Oklahoma secondary. That's not something that will allow you to win against Alabama. Alabama, especially in years past, you've noticed it when they played Johnny Manziel and he beat them, Deshaun Watson and Clemson when they beat him. It's amazing, abnormally good quarterback play that beats Alabama. You have to make plays and you have to go out and win the game. You can't expect Alabama to lose the game like Georgia has done, especially in that Oklahoma game. You have to go out and get it. You're going to have to take chances down the field and you're going to have to be successful, and that's not something that Fromm has showed me he's able to do at all this season. They do still have those amazing running backs in Sony Michel, Swift, and Chubb, and they're able to break off a lot of big plays, but it's going to be a little harder for them this week against an elite, arguably the best rush defense in the entire country. And against Nick Saban, it's going to be really tough. Nick Saban's amazing at game planning, especially when he has 1 or 2 extra days. And Nick Saban's 11-0 against all of his pupils. Every assistant he's ever faced that has turned into a head coach, he's beaten. Will that trend continue today, or continue on Monday? It'll be really interesting to see.
It will be. I think Kirby Smart has got him in a position he doesn't really want to be in, though, so I think there's a good chance Georgia can, but it's going to come back. This is definitely a game with another quarterback battle. Both these quarterbacks they've been great all season in limiting turnovers, especially, and interceptions. Jalen Hurts only has 1, and Jake Fromm only has 5. But despite it being a quarterback battle, my key player today is Roquan Smith. He led the team in tackles last game with 11 total tackles. He had a huge tackle for loss in overtime, which sent out the field goal kicker, giving them a huge edge in getting that win. He's been great all season. He's played a pivotal role. He's all over the field. You'll see him on the right side of the field one play, and then he's all the way deflecting passes on the left side the next play. He is a beast, and he's going to be out there trying to create some havoc for the Alabama offense this week.
Yeah, but one thing that my key player in Rashaan Evans was able to do that Roquan Smith wasn't able to do this last week was play an entire game. Roquan Smith had a horrible first half. He had missed tackles. He had missed assignments. He was blown by. He was getting consistently blocked. He wasn't able to shed Oklahoma's offensive line. Alabama has one of the best offensive lines in the entire country. He's going to be facing a lot of those similar blocking schemes, especially when running the ball, that Oklahoma pushed up against Roquan Smith and that Georgia front seven. And for me, Rashaan Evans, he's been absolutely amazing all year. He's second on the team in sacks. He's first in tackles for loss. He's able to deflect passes in the secondary. He's able to get in your backfield, and he's extremely smart. He's one of the best gap defenders you will ever watch. If you love watching fundamentally sound football, this guy is right at the top. He has a nose for the ball, but he doesn't do it stupidly. He doesn't over pursue. He knows it's going to come back to him. He knows when to wait. He knows when to be patient, but he attacks and he doesn't miss tackles. He sheds blocks consistently. He's an amazing defender, and I think he's going to have another huge game against this Georgia offensive line.
Well, both these teams have very strong defenses, resulting in our defensive picks, but one thing that's going to be the difference here is the offense. Who do you think? It's not going to be as high scoring as the Rose Bowl, and it's not going to be as exciting as the Rose Bowl, but I think we're in for an exciting game. But Griffin, who are you liking going into this?
For me, I can't pick against Nick Saban in a national championship. He's done it too many times. He's been there before. Kirby Smart has never been there before as a head coach. I can't see Nick Saban losing another national championship, especially back-to-back years. This Alabama team is experienced. They've been there before. This Georgia team's not. This Georgia team is still pretty young at a lot of key areas, quarterback specifically. I think Alabama just has too much experience more than anything else.
If you look at Georgia's history, though, they won their first national title back in 1942. 38 years later, they won it in 1980. It's now 2018. If you do the math, it's 38 years later. I think it's in Georgia's destiny. They have a stronger offense, and that might be where the difference comes in. Jake Fromm is going to take control of this game early on, and they're not going to make the same mistake they made last week, coming out slow in the first half. They're going to get the job done. As you can see, we ditched the set today for this beautiful view of the beach here in Florida, but there's a reason we ditched the set. We no longer have the set. I have moved away from Gainesville. I just graduated college. We're moving on to bigger and better things, both of us. So this is unfortunately our last episode of RedZone, EndZone probably ever, but we just want to take the time to say thank you. It has been a pleasure seeing those views go up. We love the support we've gotten from some of you guys. Even the haters out there, we appreciate everything you did because you helped make this product better for us. We took some of those suggestions and tried to change them, but if you have any words of support or anything, feel free to comment them, but we appreciate all of your support this past season.
Thanks for welcoming us into your home, guys, and love you too, Georgia fans.